Hey folks, and welcome to They Might Be Racing. Today we've got the 2002 Corolla back at the shop. What has happened to it is in the past few weeks the idle has gone off on the car. Basically, while the car is being driven it's okay, but when you stop at a light or you first start the car, idle jumps all over the place. It feels like it's going to stall. Basically, with this particular car, it looks like we have a problem with the emissions control system. Now, emissions controls on modern cars are very complex. There's lots of parts to them, but there are a couple of basics. And one of my favorite ones is cleaning the mass airflow sensor. So the mass airflow sensor, here is your air filter. Here's your line that runs down into your motor. Off the back of it is the mass airflow sensor. Now what it does is it measures the temperature of the air going into the engine, and the computer then uses that data to ensure that it's putting the right amount of fuel mixed with the air into the engine for ignition. So to get to the mass airflow sensor, the first thing we have to do is loosen up the throttle cable mount. Now I do this simply to get it out of the way. There's your throttle cable. Let's tuck it down here. And this mount, if you loosen it a bit more, you can get it to rotate. So now it's out of your way. The mass airflow sensor itself, there is the mass airflow sensor, and then there's the electrical connector down here. Now the electrical connector needs to be detached, so you press down and wiggle it off. You want to check the interior of it, make sure it's clean, make sure the wires look like they're all still connected correctly in the back. If that's okay, we go ahead and we pull the mass airflow sensor. On this Corolla, it's held in place with two very small screws that are very easy to drop and lose. So make sure you got a hand on them when you're pulling them out. Now, for all the stuff that this controls in the car, it's actually a very simple unit. If you look at this, you'll see right in here there is a little set of wires, little spades of metal in there, and that's where the measurement occurs. Now I've already pulled this and cleaned it just to make sure that that was the problem, but basically what happens is when you pull this, you'll see that these the bits of steel in here actually look brown and maybe rounded off. Basically what happens is it electrostatically picks up dust over time. Now here in Arizona this summer we've had some really massive dust storms, which is probably what finally put this on the fritz. But basically anything that gets past your air filter can collect on here. So what you do to clean it off is first give it a good wipe down with a blue towel, and then get out your handy dandy can of carb cleaner. And what you're aiming for is the metal. So you go ahead and give it a quick spray. And it should jet most of that dust off. You want to dry this off well, trying not to actually touch those spades. Sometimes you need to blow on it a little bit. But at this point, the mass airflow sensor is clean because there's no moving parts. There's really very little in this to break and go bad. It is possible for them to go bad though, so what you want to do with them is always clean them, put them back in the car, check everything out. And if it's still not functioning correctly, there are electrical tests you can do on the pins. Otherwise, it's just a simple operation. And again, from here, just put it all back together again. So screw it back into place and reconnect the electrical cable. As I said, screws are easy to drop. The other thing you want to do while you're underneath here is reset the codes in the computer. So when this went bad and started giving us grief and the idle went off, the check engine light came on. I got the codes pulled at AutoZone and it was P0170 was the primary code that came out, and it relates pretty much to the emissions control system. So there's lots of things it could be. It could be your gas cap, could be a vacuum leak, but you want to start when doing diagnostics on this with the easiest bits possible, and in this case, the mass airflow unit. But basically, to reset the computer, you disconnect your negative battery terminal, pull it off the battery for a few minutes, and then reconnect it. Now, with this cleaned and the computer reset, we went ahead and tested the car, and it turns out that that was actually the problem with the emissions control system. So what went from a really poorly running motor that seemed like it was about to die at any instant, we went to a perfectly smooth idling engine simply by spraying a little carb cleaner on that and cleaning it off. Remember, sometimes it's the simplest fixes that you get the most mileage from. So that's pretty much it from the engine compartment of the 2002 Toyota Corolla today. So, hope this helps you, and happy driving.